This is Bless Radio. It's Tuesday evening and it's 6 p.m. This is the Spiritual Discussion Program. My name is Saad. I'm in Southeast London in Bromley, and with me is Gregory. Are you there, Gregory?
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Gregory, please tell us where you are.
Well, here I'm in Brussels and it's cloudy.
Cloudy, okay. Same here down in London, also cloudy and a bit cold, I will say, a little bit cold. So welcome listeners to this show. It's called the Spiritual Discussion Program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And we have a topic every week, a new topic every week. The topic for tonight is peace and justice. And I've chosen that topic. As you know, recently we've had some conflict between Israel and Palestinians, and I know they've now just had a ceasefire, but it was ongoing for some days, and it was in the news for some time. So I thought it would be a good thing to talk about. It doesn't, of course, involve only those two peoples. There's all around the world people are fighting for peace and justice. So we'll reflect on that today. I just want to mention that this Sunday that's just gone past, it was Pentecost, and Christians were celebrating the outpouring of the power of the Holy Spirit. So just to mention that. And also today is the 1-year anniversary of the killing of George Floyd, who was killed in the USA by a policeman. And there were massive protests around the world, against racism and against violence, basically. Unjustified violence, you can say. So, and there have been many other events in the news. I won't go into that right now. But so the topic for tonight is peace and justice. And if you're interested in being involved in the discussion, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I want to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses. No any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. Dear listeners, I just want to remind you the topic for tonight is peace and justice. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us is our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, so as I mentioned, the topic is peace and justice, and it's such a, you could say, appealing wish, and you could say even a demand of people that that's a great longing within people, and yet it seems to be very far away in this world that we live, and so I would like to ask Gregory, actually, is it possible for human beings to have this justice and peace? Right then, yes, I'll just say in that, let me just start with that. Is it possible for human beings to have justice and peace?
Of course, it is possible for human beings to have justice and peace. There must be a precondition for justice and peace. Whether it is spiritual peace and justice or earthly peace and justice, the main thing here is that those who wish to have it must engage in peace and also engage in justice. For wherever there is no engagement, then things lead nowhere.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. Just to clarify one thing, and I'm not sure I heard you fully, you said there's an earthly peace and justice and there's a spiritual peace and justice. So,
yes.
Can you just, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it fully, so could you just repeat when you mean that, did you say, as I said, I'm not quite sure if that was what you said, did you mean that the earthly peace and justice is not really achievable while the spiritual one is? Or please can you just clarify that? Apologies for not being clear on that.
That was not said at all.
Right.
So there is, so whether it be spiritual peace and justice or earthly peace and justice, those who are involved must be engaged in these activities.
Right. Thank you for that. So, okay, so that's good. And just to add to, just now I'm going to just focus on the spiritual just for a moment. So the spiritual peace and justice, is that only through the Almighty, whilst the earthly, is it through man's own efforts? I just want to clarify that.
There is basically one simple peace and one simple justice, which simplicity is such that the rules that help many to engage in this peace and justice are so very simple. So there is no need to sort of differentiate between the spiritual peace and earthly peace. But because human spirits have separated or do not wish to recognize what earthly peace, what spiritual peace is, then we have ourselves in this particular scenario. And that is why, to understand it aright, to understand the scenarios aright, there is the need to discuss that which tends or which is ideal, how it should be, and that which for now, due to their maturity or immaturity, a scenario has arisen that one has to confront. Hence, that expression, earthly peace and justice.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. Just to go further on this topic of the peace and justice and the earthly peace and justice and spiritual peace and justice, you said there needs to be an ideals, how can I say, maybe I should put it in a way that there should be like a standard for this earthly and spiritual peace and justice, and you said there shouldn't be like a division between the two, if I understood you correctly. So when you, let's say, when you're seeking the peace and justice, or this, let's say this, when you're seeking it, would you seek it like together then? The not separate. Because let's maybe even look at what is earthly peace and justice. Maybe it means we are at peace with our neighbors, and we are, let's say, we are, let's say, sufficiently, you can say, in all our lives there's a balance somehow. There's in health, in terms of I use the word money in quotes, not that money is the goal of life, but like you need something, let's say, to live in peace, and that you feel satisfied, that you have, that you are not let's say, suffering in some way. So my question, Gregory, is should the earthly and spiritual peace and the seeking for the spiritual and earthly peace and justice, should it be considered as one to achieve? Yes. Should we act always with both in mind, or is like for earth you seek it almost, I'm trying to say, do you seek it when you're on the earth, the earthly one, and when you leave the earth you seek the spiritual one? I just want to get a bit more clarity about it.
No, that is very wrong. There should be very simply one peace, which peace has arisen through the balance of radiations that permeates either the earth or that which is earthly and that which is non-earthly. It is because of the attitude that many a person holds that That is what separates the person on earth and the so-called heavenly peace or heavenly justice.
So, yeah, sorry.
When earthly peace is discussed, they are based on earthly laws, which laws themselves are not balanced, are not fair. So, on a wrong foundation, how can you then achieve justice? For each personality that has come here on earth to experience, has deep within them the potential to unfold to the beauty that first it has found around it, and also to unfold to help all others around it. If that opportunity is denied by others, then there will be problems, because like others, he himself or herself has come to experience and would wish to share that which it holds within itself. Like was discussed in the past, in any place one finds oneself, it is one for all and all for one. That is the basis of good neighbors. Anytime that is violated, then you have the scenario where instead of smooth relationship, there will now be turbulent relationships.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. I remember you mentioned earlier about maturity and immaturity, and there are no two people the same. Everyone's an individual, and surely through that, there's no two people with the same maturity. It's always different, or even peoples, you could say. And so I'm thinking the level of maturity determines how they see, you could say, peace and justice. Each group or each person sees it all differently. So the level of one person's justice and peace could be totally different from another person due to this difference in maturity. So I'm just thinking how it's possible to have peace when you have different levels of human beings. As I say, I'm not putting aspersions against any person or any peoples, but when you have these differences, Gregory, this maturity, can they really live in peace and justice?
Of course. All you need to do, you take a very simple example of two persons, two different personalities. To be fair, ask them who is more matured. If A says he is more matured than B, you may accept that. But maturity, more maturity already means that he or she who is more matured should show more understanding to those who are not as matured as himself. So amongst those who are squabbling or fighting, and people defend their corners, search within yourself or amongst those people and listen to those who claim rights, and then ask them who is more matured. The one who is more matured is the one who is supposed to hold the structure, the one who is supposed to hold the peace, the one who is supposed to show understanding. That this is not the case explains why we have such catastrophes as has been for a long time.
Thank you again for your answer, Gregory. And wondering in myself that where you have two people of different maturity, and the more mature one is supposed to give more understanding in regards to the situation. Let's say there's some argument or something, which makes sense. But then, can the immature one recognize the more mature one? Because it might be that they both claim they're the most mature. The two people, both of them could claim that each one is more mature than the other. And so, how is it? Can they can there? Yes, can each of them recognize that actually this is more mature? This person is more mature. Is there some mark, some way to know that?
By their activities, they display their maturity or immaturity. For the one who is more matured is likely to be the one who might be injured because of one's restraint. By their activities, people always expose where they stand. So if there is argument like that, and the more matured one looks at the scenario and he himself or herself deserves peace, then is prepared to call all to the table and discuss the misunderstanding in a fair and natural way. Maturity in the spiritual sense means you can see where you wish to go. The goal is unflinching, but you have to be flexible, realizing that the person in your neighborhood hasn't come to a certain level of appreciation. If, however, because you yourself consider that you have more wealth or more means, and then suppress such a personality, then by your activities you display that indeed you are not the matured one, but an oppressor.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I'm just thinking, Gregory, that some situations, they don't seem to be able to be resolved, and maybe people are being stubborn, they don't want to give in, or like you say, have more understanding, and so they start using violence. And so I want to ask, and we've had world wars or just wars, we've had wars, in all throughout history. And so does the violence, Gregory, if somebody uses the violence, can that lead to peace? Or, is that justified to achieve peace because you can't agree?
You do not expect people at different stages of maturity to always agree. There must be a dialogue. Only when force has been utilized for one party considering they are superior to others, and such superiority is only in their imaginations, because circumstances dictate that they might have a slight advantage over others. Violence, as seen from those who desire peace, is only a result which has been precipitated by those who themselves do not desire peace. For if things are discussed, like you can easily go into history of the so-called Second World War, where different parties came together and a document was signed, Peace in Our Time. Only when the immature one decide to resort to terrible violence did the others decide to bring in restraint. So in one's observation, one should look at the holistic picture. It is not always that people want to go into violence or go into war. For on the long run, what will be the benefit when all has been destroyed? What do they gain from it? Will they say the resources, which resources would have been used for upbuilding, but now have been destroyed? Will they justify the wastage of such resources because of their ignorant and stupid nature?
Thank you for that, Gregory. There's certain people who are totally against violence. I've forgotten war. I've actually forgotten the term they is used for it. So they're pacifists. That's it. And never want. They say absolutely never go to war. And then, but Gregory, if somebody attacks you, shouldn't you protect yourself or defend yourself? Or should you just allow them to attack and then you just, yeah.
That is a personal question. What happens if someone attacks you? What should you do? Which is a fair question. At the same time, someone attacks you. Are you sure that person is balanced? Suppose a child attacks you. What will be your response? If an elder attacks you without any previous misunderstanding, what should be your response? Do you just turn around and resort into forceful means? These are the questions. In most cases, mere observing that particular person will tell you something is wrong somewhere. There are many a person who are mentally unbalanced.
Thank you for that.
Because,
sorry.
Like you mentioned,
yeah.
Someone attacks you. So you have to weigh very well. At the same time, if you consider that someone close to you attacks you, how would you respond? If that person is a close relative, a loved one, how would you respond? Would you take a gun and shoot that person? Or would you use an atomic weapon on that person? So these are the questions that each person must ask themselves, whether these persons are in government or not in government.
Thank you for that, Gregory. As I mentioned earlier, today is the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd being killed, by a policeman in America. And there was massive protests, as we know, in the world. And today I saw in the news it appears there are some changes in the police way of working in America there. They're now looking at ways of de-escalating. That's the word I heard today, de-escalating the situation. And this particular very short story that I saw, apparently there was some shots on some streets in America, and police arrived. Rather than retaliate with their own gunfire, they actually didn't fire, and they actually tried to de-escalate. And I must admit, the report was so brief, I'm not quite sure what exactly happened, but it appears it certainly seemed to have worked in terms of, let's say, people getting killed. It appears nobody was killed. I must say they didn't seem to spend long time on the report for me to get the full real picture, but they were just saying this, that things have been changing, and rather than, you could say, pick the gun first and fire, the police might think of that first before they see what's actually happening and then responding to that. So that was something I can say quite good to see, like a shift in how the police is reacting. I was actually quite surprised when I saw it, because I didn't know this such sort of dramatic changes were taking place so quickly, actually. Um, so
That again goes to show the case of those who now claim more maturity, responding to challenges in a calm way instead of in a violent way. That is what one was referring to as that maturity. You do not come into a scenario and start shooting. First, you have to understand as best you can if in the training of this law enforcement, people, assuming the law which they themselves are enforcing are fair to all, then in their response to duties, to scenarios like this, there will be that calmness, which many may say is de-escalation, and seek out for peaceful solution rather than precipitating even a worse scenario. Unless one is engaged in peace, peace will not be engaged with them. So there is the need for those who show or who claim maturity to show more restraint.
thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrusheen. And if you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com, grailmessage.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is peace and justice. Peace and justice. You're welcome to join in the discussion with any questions or comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, we've talked about maturity, immaturity, and being engaged in peace and being restrained. But when people are in power, Gregory, they seem to be more, in quotes, trigger happy, because they seem to feel that they have this power, and so we've been hearing in the news. I'm just thinking that I'm just going to give this one story, and maybe I can try to turn a question out of it, if possible. So we just heard, I think it happened yesterday, or 2 days ago, I've forgotten exactly. There was a Ryanair flight from, I think, Athens to Vilnius in Europe, and it was, in quotes, hijacked, because supposedly there was a bomb alert, and when it's on the airspace of Belarus, and then the plane was forced to land, and they arrested this dissident journalist and critic of the Belarusian president and his girlfriend as well. And it was such you could say, incredibly you could say, surprising thing that anybody could dare to do that, but that's what happened. And then the, let's say, European and US condemned that. And then somebody brought up this issue, Gregory, that apparently in 2013, in fact I saw the news story, the Bolivian plane carrying the Bolivian president from Russia into Europe was forced to land in Austria because it was suspected that it was a spy of, under, let's say, Edward Snowden, who's considered a spy by USA, that they wanted to think he was flying on this plane as well, and they would like to arrest him because they claim he's leaking military secrets. So, Gregory, what we notice here, so-called people who supposedly stand for, you could say, ideal standards, in one case, they don't act according to that, and then they blame or put the blame on others who, when they don't act, when they act against these ideal standards. So my question on this, Gregory, is how, when you have such like a double standards, is it, do you have a right, let me say that way, to condemn another party, which you are yourself guilty of, and or you conveniently think people have forgotten or don't even know that's something you did? So, Gregory?
Well, I'm listening. Yes.
You're listening. Okay. So I just want to ask, yes, should somebody condemn or country condemn another country when they're really doing the same thing or have done something like this in themselves, and they claim to be of a high standard of justice and peace?
People, in the first case, must realize they have their free will to do what they wish to do, to condemn or not to condemn. That right cannot be taken away from them, because the free will is an intrinsic property of the human personality. So, yes, they have a right because they have a free will. Yes, they don't have a right because they are talking about other people. What is key here is, what is the motive that lies in all these things? That lies in the person who is the critic. Once the motive is examined, then answers, genuine answers, will arrive. So it's not a matter of, I'm going to, because someone did something wrong some time ago, now I can do the same thing. And then when that person is criticizing me, I say, but you did so and so long time ago. That is a fair thought. That's a fair criticism, no doubt about it. However, it's a shame that someone having done something somewhere which you yourself recognize as wrong, and that it brings no benefit to all the parties, you now go and do exactly the same thing. The person whom you criticize might have matured to such an extent that he might have made atonement for such a behavior. Whereas you yourself, whom at that time recognized this was wrong, are just getting it. Just getting into it. So the question is, who is the loser? The problem has always been comparing yourself to other people. There is absolutely no need for that. Any maturity dictates that the maturity you have today is finer, is far superior to the maturity you had yesterday. Only in that sense will you say you are making progress. Else you are not making progress. And for the one who grows in maturity, that personality will show more understanding, more love towards others, rather than having such selfish deeds.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Many times we see people who have, like I say, a lot of power and making a lot of atrocities uh, just to stay in power because they believe that their citizens or whatever group opposing them is causing them disturbance. And so, and they don't seem to have any, I'm sure if the same thing happened to them, let's call it torture, they would not be able to handle it. But they don't seem to have a problem, torturing their fellow, even citizens, never mind some enemy of another country. They seem to be happy to do that in many such cases. So, we're talking in the physical violence here. There are other ways as well, but let's stick to this physical one for now. So, what I'd like to ask there, yes. So I want to ask, in some cases, Gregory, should because you do get revolutions, in some countries, used to be, let's say, quite common, maybe some in the past, where the people rise up, and then sometimes the army, the military decides, okay, we don't want this ruler anymore. He's dictator or whatever he's been doing. He's not for the people anymore, and they throw him out through the violence. So the military takes over and so on. This is, let's say, very occasionally when the military is like on the side of their own people. Mostly they seem to be on the side of the ruler. So my question, Gregory, is: are there certain circumstances where the force is justifiable for, overthrowing a very brutal ruler?
Before one jumps in to give special circumstances or lack of it therein, one must quietly reflect on how these scenarios came about. Maybe better lessons are learned in the process of these scenarios coming about than then jumping in and try to find a solution to a scenario when that could have been prevented. Like the saying goes, prevention is better than cure. You yourself can, attest to this in the so-called pandemic environment, where things could have been prevented, but not paying the necessary attention, the lack of the alertness to the sensitivities in ensuring that there is peace. That means granting people the opportunities for genuine upbuilding, and granting people the fairness to express themselves. Should these things be observed, then some of the scenarios which you yourself are mentioning would not come about. But taking things forward, haven't come to this sort of quagmire in which many persons now decide to defend themselves so vigorously. The question may be, what do we do? And again, it is very simple. Each personality has the right, just like other people, to defend themselves when the scenario arises, when their rights or they are being punished unnecessarily for wrongs which they themselves have not committed. That is granted to the one who is punished and the one, in quotes, who is doing the punishment. This is where fairness comes in. But at the same time, maturity in observation, maturity in the alertness also comes into this. For if a personality ensures that their power of alertness, of observation is high, many a thing which would have led to a quagmire is already or could be detected in time and avoided. And that is the route which many times have not been looked into. Many of those who call themselves rulers or have imposed themselves, that means there was no agreement before they jump in. All right? They have now taken upon themselves the woe, the challenges of the masses. No one asked them to come there. They did. For those who have been elected, then it should serve as a lesson that now an opportunity has been granted to a group of people to, in quotes, redeem themselves, to enact policies, which policies will allow those who are not that endowed to grow, to mature, because they are thinking of the future. If, however, you do not make policies now which will lead the people to better pastures in the future, before too long, you yourself cannot be there forever, or your family will be there forever, then, or say your relatives will be there forever, you will then have ensured, because of your lack of foresight, when you yourself asked to be granted an opportunity to guide, because of that lack of foresight, that nation is now thrown into very, very difficult and challenging times. And subsequently, you will find that it is not you who is going to bury yourself. Others are going to do that. It is not your family who will be there forever. Others are going to take over. And because you haven't done that which you needed to do, you precipitate terrible things, the returns which now become a cost to a nation. So this so-called leadership must be looked into very carefully. Not those who shout that they wish to be leaders can truly be leaders. Examples abound in countries where those who sat by the side shouted that they want to become leaders, and when the opportunities then arose for alertness to help the people, they lied. And what was the outcome? Many had to perish. Who would want to become such a leader? Instead of you to lead your family out of danger, you led them into danger and you lied to them. Would you call that one a leader?
Thank you for that, Gregory. I've got a question given to me. If I'm honest, I don't myself know this statement, but somebody said to me, has given me this. What is the spiritual meaning of the statement, he who wants peace should prepare for war. So, if I'm very honest, I've not heard of this statement at all. But yes,
it is a common statement. That is perfectly correct. Whoever needs peace, desires peace, must be engaged in warfare, but not warfare on others. Must be engaged in warfare on his own weaknesses, on his own lack of understanding, on his own, what one will call those things which tend to hold him down, to not to be able to understand the needs of other people. That means there must be warfare on those things, on himself, not on others. For the first rule for the human spirit is to know himself, to know thyself. To know thyself means to walk within themselves in their personal struggle to understand the challenges first of himself. Then, to a large extent, he will understand the challenges of others. And because having conquered those weaknesses first within himself, he now has the knowledge on how to approach others.
thank you.
Therefore, it is said, whoever needs peace, wants peace, must be prepared for war. But that war is not on others. War on ignorance. Only then will the bandage fall.
Thank you so much for that answer, Gregory. I certainly got a different understanding of that statement now. Yes, I mean, that's what you do believe or think about, that yes, we need to improve ourselves, we need to work on ourselves. But the word war, it would not maybe come as, for me, as a first point to think of it like that. But yes, it's a war to basically to work on yourself. So thank you for that on our weaknesses. Also, Gregory, it is said that Jesus was called the Prince of Peace, and why was that?
Of course, he himself is the Prince of Peace, for he came in peace. In his ministry, he did it in peace. Even where they said crucify, he did not fight back. He took it in peace. So, from his origin, which lie back in the divine, where only peace and harmony reigns, he is the personification of divine peace, and all his activities are mirrored in this. And therefore, when one strives to understand his statements like love thy neighbor as thyself, because many haven't tried it, have not even attempted, they do not know that what indeed they do for their neighbor, they are doing for themselves. If only they have come to that conviction, then peace and harmony becomes a matter of course. And in our initial discussions, we said in the neighborhood that one for all and all for one. Moreover, in your neighborhood, by neighborhood, one is not referring to distance as such. but the quality of thoughts that you permit to surround you through personal struggle to ensure that radiations assail you that you may use to set up false structures within yourself, to protect yourself, and also to protect your neighbor in such a way that that which is inherent in one's neighbor comes to fruition, which fruition will enable it that you yourself will enjoy the fruits of his labor, just as your neighbor will enjoy the fruits of your labor. So Christ being the personification of divine love, and love goes with peace, not war, not destruction.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I just want to say also that at the time of Jesus there, the Jews were wondering if he's the Messiah, and and they were thinking he's going to free them from the Romans, and obviously they were even he was called like King of the Jews. So this is what they thought, or let's say some of the Jews thought that, and then let's say, and yet they also loved the words he spoke, so they thought, yes, this is right what he's saying. But I think they had this expectation that, oh, he will free them from the Romans also, in the let's say the literal sense of the from the occupation, let's say, and then they discovered, oh, that's not what he's coming to do, and so they thought, no, then he can't be the Messiah, and he's something else even. So my question on that, Gregory, is when you have, like, say, a particular expectation, and you are disappointed because you are hoping, oh, this is a good man, this is really wanting to help us here, and then your expectation or prophecy, because they even thought this is some prophecy that this is what's going to happen to them, they will have freedom. So how can people or human beings realize the true, you could say, the purpose of somebody's mission and thing? Because as I said, they had been given some promise, but somehow their understanding of that promise was not, let's say, the reality. So how can one realize what is the true promise, and what, or when you know that something isn't right, what you believe?
That is a very good question, which answer you had already quoted. Why? Because it is said, if you desire peace, if you want peace, prepare for war. You prepare for war, preparation to cleanse oneself, such that the understanding of what had been given is understood aright. In that scenario, they had failed, because in their narrow interpretation, they expected the Prince of Peace to carry spears, swords, arrows. That was not the case. And when he came and said peace, and these discussions were based on peace first within oneself, it means there must be that preparation for war of the distorted concept which they held up to that time. If the concepts they held at that time were right, then they would have accepted him But because these concepts were distorted and they were not at war with these distorted views, when the evidence before their eyes is that of peace, it then turned from Hosanna to crucify. It happens every day where people are expecting something. The self-expectation, the justification, which when looked at from the right direction is very faulty. So, like you said, if you want peace, prepare for war. That preparation is the cleansing. So, once you have an agreement with someone, then you yourself, before that agreement is made, must strive to understand the agreement in the right way, rather than having a monologue view or a one-sided view without looking at the holistic picture of what peace is supposed to be, or the benefit which that agreement should bring to all parties.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Really providing a clear picture, of what Jesus' mission was about and how the Jews just didn't get what it was really. They just had, and because they didn't work on themselves, as you said. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light truth, the Grail message by Abrushing. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is peace and justice. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And just to let you know, we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, we are broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, and then space live stream. That's one word. Bless Radio 1 is one word, and then after that space, and then it's live stream, which is one word. So that's to listen to the live show. You can also listen to the recording of the show and our previous shows. Again, from YouTube, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, then space Grail message, Grail message, MESSAGE, and the topic of the show, which tonight is peace and justice. As I say, you can listen to our previous shows as well. Gregory, I would like to talk about the current or recent conflict between the Israel and Palestinians, which we know has been going on for decades before that, and I know it came to ceasefire just a few days ago, which is holding, thank goodness, but we know that the people have both sides deemed themselves to be justified to take violent action in response to disturbances or their grievances. and there's a great distress to the people, especially young people who feel they are innocent and their dreams are being shattered, because they haven't taken part in anything, and yet now they're suffering for this. Um, Also, we see one side is more incredibly military stronger than the other, and so causes disproportionate destruction and suffering. So it appears, Gregory, that the weak people suffer more severely. Uh, so, is there any justice here from the laws of Almighty God?
You said the weak people suffer more severely. From what has been seen, it seems so. But those whom you claim to be weak can learn the necessary lessons and in that state mature very quickly. And those who claim to be strong because they themselves have arms to crush others, they themselves have not reflected deeply enough to know that these people whom they wish to crush are their neighbors. If only their eyes were open to find that those whom they are crushing are their nearest neighbors in terms of families, and that they are so related to them, then such an activity would not have taken place. That was why one had to differentiate between the spiritual justice and the earthly justice. Earthly peace and justice, one cannot compare to that which is spiritual. The earthly is always one-sided, superficial, greedy. For where they think they have sown, they don't want others to come near to reap. Even where they have not sown, they wish to reap. That again gives a very clear indication of the immaturity of those who engage in such one-sided destruction of others. Even if they claim they have the rights, will they do that to themselves, to their families, if their family were on the other side? That will not happen. So there is no need at all to compare the peace and justice in earthly matters to that which is spiritual, where in the spiritual, that which a person has sown, he himself or herself will have to reap in abundance. Therefore, one should go serenely in peace, engage in peace, and hopefully pray that those who are engaged in such destructions will come to an understanding before too long. For it is a law, or it is an understanding in creation, that which you yourself have suffered from, you should never inflict it on fellow human spirits who, like you, are striving to mature spiritually. The problem had always been on, in quotes, land. Land, the name given to a place, Jerusalem. What many should understand is that up on high, in the paradise of men, lies that city, Jerusalem, which name was given here as a counterpart, such that as you have there up, where there is peace and harmony and justice, where there is happiness, that which is there is needed to be present on earth in that same enclave that bears the similar name Jerusalem. Hence, as it is above, it should be the same below, where the love of neighbor is paramount. That is not the case already shows the one-sidedness. For those who go about with religions in their mouths, but what lies in their hearts is so different, already show what they mean by all this. For the Star of David, which is said with the triangle pointing up and intersecting with the triangle pointing down, for good things come in triple. So as it is in above, that is what must be in this same enclave where peace and harmony reigns. Is that the case? That is not the case is an indictment on those who engage in violence.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer. What I can see is many people have their own agenda rather than peace and justice for all. You said all for one and one for all, but they seem to have, even each side, there is division inside their own side. Some are looking one solution, another one looking for a different solution. It's like extremists and fanatics are on both sides, and a certain number, let's say, have the upper hand, and they are the ones able to rule, because we know, although we don't want to go into politics too much, but we know, for example, in Israel, whenever they have election, it's always like nobody can really form a full government. It's always a coalition, and it's like one side of extremes with the other side, just trying to work with each other and they're because it's supposed to be proportional representation, it's supposed to reflect the population, what they feel. That's on one side. And then I don't really want to compare, but basically what I'm trying to say, Gregory, is there can be an idealism, ideal aim to have a peace and justice, but then within the people themselves, there's a lot of division within, as I say, both sides. So it's not like to achieve this peace is I will almost say it's impossible in this current state. With something dramatic has to change, where people, like you say, almost I want to say this way, appreciating the value of life and real purpose of life, and love for thy neighbor, as you have mentioned what Jesus said. And this seems to go out of the window when it comes to their own wishes. It's like, yes, I want what I want, but almost like it doesn't matter what happens at the expense of another. Basically, not really we are together, as you've said. So,
may I come in and ask a question?
Sure.
The 10 Commandments were given to Moses. And in the 10 Commandments, it was given with, is it the 5th or the 6th commandment, which says, thou shalt not kill.
Okay.
Why was this commandment given? It was given to ensure that the people of the Jews at that time, in the process of maturity, should not enslave or besmirch others by deadening those noble aspirations of others. It was given. It is still the tenet of the law, of the Mosaic law. Now that that law is being broken again and again is an indictment. That suffices to clarify. And that was why at the beginning of these discussions, to say very clearly, those who claim to be more matured are the ones who should have the greatest restraint in the activities with their neighbors. So bringing in political ambitions so that others will perish does not justify what they are doing. There is no justice in there. For it must be well known, whatever the human spirits in their motive, that is in their intuition, have sown, before long there must be returns. That is what justice is about. For you have sown, you have to reap. For if one has not sown, one cannot reap. So for many who now have to go through anguish of the soul in their suffering, in learning from it, never to go down that line, for revenge is not theirs. They are then severed from the returns which surely will come.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I just want to go back to Jesus, where he was asked once by some Jews that they should pay taxes to the Romans. And he replied, "Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God." And it seemed to imply that there are two different paths, earthly life and spiritual life, which do not appear to align in this real world. I know we started in the beginning of the show that that is not meant to be the case, but here Jesus seems to be indicating that there's something that belongs to the Caesar or the Romans, in this case here, representing Roman, and then something belongs to God. So, what did he mean when he said that?
The trade routes which have been established was done by the Romans. All the wealth which were being built up were done through the coordination of the Romans. And the Romans at that time needed the resources to ensure that things are well done, and also for the protection of those who live within the so-called empire. And therefore taxes were demanded. After all, if a road is paved from one city to the other, that road needs to be maintained. People will have to walk on that road to ensure there's maintenance. Where would the resources come from? So for those things which are earthly, it was only fair in the spirit of one for all and all for one that taxes are collected to make provision for the smooth running. For the Romans did not stop there. They also provided water over distances. Such technology, which was not available locally, they ensure water came. All right. So instead of the people going distances to fetch water, water was brought very close through their own ingenuity. And these structures needed to be maintained. It's only fair that resources have to be gathered for it. And for those who were asking such questions, at the same time enjoying the provisions the Romans had made, they were being unjust to the help and the wealth that the Romans administration had brought to the people of Israel at that time. At the same time, it was said to the Lord Almighty, give what belongs to him. The intuitive perception of man, the thoughts which surround us, in which we are able, through our spiritual abilities, make things better for others who are our neighbors, understanding the forces of nature, understanding the laws of nature, understanding the help that has always come from on high. It was only fair, in order to ensure that connection remains pure, that there was this continuous devotion, beseeching of the Lord Almighty to grant the power for them to continue to exist. That, therefore, that overall guidance, that holistic guidance always come from on high. So on the one hand, the everyday necessities, like traveling from one place to the other, like farming, right, like having water and all the provisions which were made available by the local councils or the local provinces, the people needed to contribute to it. At the same time, for their personal maturity in opening up deep within themselves, their souls, such that power can be poured into these souls for continuous experiencing. And that is why Jesus said, give unto Caesar. That means the local administration that makes all these things possible, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to the Lord Almighty, to whom all gratitude is due. That should be maintained also.
Thank you, Gregory, for this answer. I just want to give another angle to this story of the question about paying taxes. And so I'm going to just read, this is not to counteract what you're saying, it's simply, there was another angle to the story, and not that my question was asking you to look at that, I must admit, but I just wanted to cover that as well. So I'm going to read from here. It's Matthew chapter 22, verse 15 to verse 22. And this title is titled A Question About Paying Taxes. The Pharisees went off and made a plan to trap Jesus with questions. Then they sent to him some of their disciples and some members of Herod's party. Teacher, they said, we know that you tell the truth. You teach the truth about God's will for man without worrying about what people think. because you pay no attention to a man's status. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it against our law to pay taxes to the Roman emperor or not? Jesus, however, was aware of their evil plan, and so he said, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin for paying the tax." They brought him the coin, and he asked them, "Whose face and name are these?" "The emperor's," they answered. So Jesus said to them, "Well then, pay the emperor what belongs to the emperor, and pay God what belongs to God." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. So, Gregory, what I'm just pointing there is that what you answered, obviously, that is the resources. That's why you pay tax, because you are paying for the upkeep of this the maintenance of the country or the place where you live. But somehow here there was a loaded question from the Pharisees, trying to trap Jesus, and they're saying, is it against their own law to pay this tax? So what I want to ask there, Gregory, it's like they're testing Jesus because they say, "Oh, you tell the truth and you do the will of God. You tell us about the will of God." But then, if somebody, let's say, what they thought the Romans were, let's call it illegally occupying their land, which they thought should belong to them and not the Romans, then why we should pay the Romans? We should get rid of the Romans. So, Gregory, could you just go and respond to that, just with this context?
Could you repeat the question, because there have been so many coming to it?
I'm sorry. Okay. So what I'm asking, Gregory, the Pharisees said that is it against the law to pay the tax because to the Romans, because obviously they didn't ask this in this question directly, but they're saying we are being occupied by the Romans, who are our enemies. Should we be paying to our enemies, basically?
That superficially is a fair question. But when one examines it much, much deeper, one will find that at that particular time, there were always many warring tribes that will come and fight with the local people and want to smother them and take away their belongings. At that time, the Romans were the authorities who came in and established peace, which peace Israel as a unit had never known before. But one should never forget, the priests felt their authorities threatened, and they wanted to be rulers. They did not want someone from a distance to be, in quotes, their rulers. But the benefits that came from foreign rule, they enjoyed. Therefore, it wasn't difficult to see behind the schemes. The biggest lie was that, having listened to Christ, they claimed to understand that his word is truth, that he speaks truth, and it came from the Almighty. That was a lie. For if indeed they made that claim and they understood it, in the first instance, they would not come to one who had come from out of divinity to ask such questions. Such questions were only asked out of stupidity and out of envy, wanting to trap the other one. So their claim was not genuine and was not right. They recognize nothing. So such questions don't really hold. Just now say, okay, we have a foreign ruler far away who is taking taxes away from us, grains and things of that nature. The grains they produced, did they eat all the grains themselves, or due to the laws established at that time by the Romans, were they not able to exchange these grains and a few other things with other people? Were they not able to go to different parts of the empire? At that time, because of the rulers, the priests in Israel, they had become so very weak that they couldn't manage themselves. They couldn't even rule themselves. Therefore, you had motley bands here and there who could make too much noise. But when the challenges, when they were supposed to be bold enough, many ran away and hid. So it was not right to say, oh, they came in and they said, oh, we recognize that you are this and you have done that and you are telling the truth. Well, if that were the case, they would not come and ask Christ that question. On the contrary, they would have followed him and supported him. Do not forget, it was these same Pharisees and Sadducees who trumped up charges on the one whom they claim they have recognized that has come from out of the Almighty. So judge for yourself.
Thank you so much for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprushing. If you are interested in knowing more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is peace and justice. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us is on our UK number, which is 07939 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1, space live stream. Bless Radio 1, space live stream. And you can listen to the recording of this show and some in our previous shows also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, type in the search box Bless Radio 1, number 1 again, space Grail message, Grail message, MESSAGE, and then the topic of the show, which tonight is peace and justice. Gregory, there's so many things in the news at the moment. even here in the UK, we are seeing today's world is very polarized. With many people believe and follow their own truth. These are the sort of words we hear with regards to, say, politics. And then even you find now people who work closely together fall out and give opposing view of the same events. What I'm referring to, Gregory, is that the Dominic Cumming, who was a senior advisor to the Prime Minister here in UK, Boris Johnson, he was, let's say, he left the government, and then recently he's been making many statements declaring how he saw the COVID pandemic was handled by the Prime Minister, and he's got definitely a different angle than what the government claims. One such, not that I'm trying to focus on one thing alone, but it's just to give an example here. So the main one recently has been, example is that there's a claim by Dominic Cummings, the advisor, that it was government policy to have herd immunity initially to deal with this pandemic, and then when it was clearly shown to be failing, they changed to lockdown. This has been denied by various ministers of the government, and then you start wondering which one is right. Is there somebody, not that I can say anybody here has so much integrity that every word they say can be trusted, but there's some things people want to understand the situation, and humility, you'd think that people would have it, and especially with this COVID pandemic, since it's not a political event. So what I want to ask Gregory about this, as I say, people seem to be choosing their own truth, and like discounting the behavior of the personalities of the people, and so it's just they're choosing to believe this is the truth, and that is not the truth. So what I want to ask Gregory, and then as I say, people are not reliable in their integrity, that you can say, yeah, this is can be sure this is the truth. So is there, Gregory, should there be a standard where all the leaders need to should there be a standard where they have to reach, be truthful, let's say, or should there be like a room to maneuver that, let's say, people have their weaknesses and they, and so it's like allowed, because otherwise I would say if we have this absolute standard that only this truth can be said, and if you don't, you have to go. So how should we, what should be the standard, Gregory, in these things with leaders?
Well, many thanks for these questions. I want to make some very clear statements that here in our discussions, the text, the basis are or is the laws of nature or the laws of creation. And the motive is to invite many persons to examine this work in the light of Truth to Grail message. The little solutions we provide are only based on our understanding so far of this work. Therefore, even the solutions which are discussed must be examined thoroughly. One should not take our word for it, but dig into it in order to be able to understand processes in nature. One needs to, bestir oneself to understand where things lie. That is the first thing. Secondly, it must be understood, like as we mentioned in the first part, that there are laws. Which laws are such that only that which is beneficial for the whole should be pursued, not something for personal self-aggrandizement, wanting to show how good you are or how bad the other person is. For it must be understood that when a nation is mentioned, the nation is not a collection of stones or animals or trees, that there are human personalities there who are at varying maturities, and therefore to want to lead these personalities, one must first prepare oneself thoroughly, not to be dishing out contrary informations to what the motives are. With that being the case, if, however, things have been done which have not been right, it's only fair for whoever the leader is to own up, to say, well, this is what we did and there have been errors. But what we find, the accuser and the accusee, if one may put it that way, belonged to the same camp not long ago. And one was advising the other that things have fallen apart only meant the center, that which the whole dear, could not hold. However, the nation, the inhabitants of this nation, who look up to the government for protection, those needs were put aside. Therefore, many have to be careful. Those who wish to lead nations first must ask themselves if, strictly speaking, they have the inner ability to do that. The political ability is not what is discussed, because, as you will find in many politics, one seeks to destroy another such that he can say, look at me, I'm capable. Whereas when the opportunity is now granted, as at the time the opportunity then comes, they had based their argument on the past, where they thought their inner abilities suited, because then they were on the outside. They were not in the inside. Just as some of the best coaches in football are spectators, not those who are in the field or the manager. And that is what you find. When the opportunity now comes, where the challenges which they themselves were considering now vary, have now changed to new types, they found that they were not fully equipped. They hadn't prepared hard enough to deal with these challenges. And that is why you find the scenario that you find in most of these countries. For these personalities were not alert enough. With that, one would not want to mention specific names, for discussions like this are meant for everyone, so that whoever listens and examines it aright may also gain from it. But mentioning specific names most of the times brings people, they become partisan, which is not what is intended here. And that is why one may just make general statements instead of holding this particular name to that particular name. For even these personalities may yet improve themselves tomorrow, mature to such an extent, and do the best they can to make atonement.
Thank you so much for that answer, Gregory. Yes, you covered, the overall thing as you let's say foundation of our discussion, which is to introduce the Grail message, and to the best of our understanding, it's not we say this is what it is and it's like gospel. No, each person must examine for himself. So thank you for bringing that point. And of course, yes, we are not trying to take sides. This is one side we agree, or this side we disagree. So yes, this is a spiritual discussion, and we're looking at, you could say, the impact of human activities. So I've got a question which is similar in a way what happened with Jesus, Gregory, when the Pharisees tried to ask Jesus about paying taxes to Caesar or Romans. In similar only in the sense of that people set out with an agenda, and then they sort of lose the actual plot of what is the reality, the bigger picture, if I can say like this. So I want to give another example. I know it's political, but I just want to use it. Basically, let's say, again, it's related to the last question. Basically, many ministers are supporting, let's say, Prime Minister with out of loyalty to an agreed policy, let's say. And then, but what we know, Gregory, when they have a cabinet meeting, there'll be, let's say there are 10 ministers there, 7 are in one favor of one thing, and 3 are against. But because it's called a joint cabinet, I've forgotten the exact word for it, they need to all follow the line. So once a policy has been agreed, all 10 must say the same thing, even if 3 of them are not really agreeing with it. So my question, Gregory, is that a hypocrisy if 3 of these people are not agreeing, but when they come to the public, they say that, oh no, this is what we agree with. So, yeah, is that right? Is that a right way to say it?
But what has been stressed in the past, people have their free wills to agree or to disagree. What counts are the motives. What one sees are the outer expression of an inner motive. The motive or motives can be well hidden. That is where politicians are best. They hide the real motive. If the motive is for the benefit of all, for the ennoblement of all, then it is right. If the motive is only for the benefit of a few, to satisfy personal egos, then it is not right. But the question is, where is the personality who is able to see beyond the outer words, the cacophony of words, to understand the true motive behind an activity? Very few. Therefore, each personality must improve themselves to be able to read beyond all these outward activities. Whereas what lies behind it, that is the lever which dictates whether that which has been done is of benefit to the nation or not. Examples there are in the past where a nation will go to the extent, or the leader of a nation will go to the extent as to precipitate catastrophe somewhere, to use that as an example. The people not being able to understand what lies behind it keep singing the praises of the leader. In such a way, you had in the past the case of Nero, who set Rome on fire. We have in the past the case in certain countries of recent times where the parliament, or the so-called Reichstag, was set on fire. Again, one can see even in the politics in the Middle East, where people want to come to power and they have to precipitate some. By now, people should understand their fellow human spirits, what they are capable of doing. It is not rocket science to be able to see through this, but for many to come out, not in our name can you do this, whether you oppose or not. Many should now stand up and say, not in our name. For these personalities only use these laws as a camouflage to achieve their specific, personal, selfish objective, which many cannot immediately see. But they are not alone. As they are, so there are many within the citizenry who do the same. But each person who wishes to be genuine should ensure that they themselves never engage in such.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I've got one more question before we come to the end of the show now. We have the climate change as a big crisis, in this time, and the new sort of young generation is rising up, very much pushing forward with this, strongly for this to basically we do something about it, to protect the future of this planet. And but my question is, Gregory, talking about tonight's topic, peace and justice, is it only like a future generation where the people will become serious about it, the peace and justice? Because when I say future generation, it sounds like just the next generation, but I will say maybe hundreds of years. I cannot give a number, but something like this, that true peace and justice will prevail. Is that we have to wait for such a generation?
What one should strive to understand is that there is continuity. The future that many desire, where there will be ennoblement, there will be peace, which peace only means upbuilding activities of structures that will promote continuous peace. Justice, which only means that as a man sows, so shall he reap. That is fairness. And the same thing happens to the whole, that there must be a beginning, there must be a continuity. Only when there is perpetually many a person working on peace and working injustice, only then will it come about. Else, evil, which had already been sown on earth, will take over, will not even allow things like that to come up. So it is not the work of future generations, but the activity which must commence. And in fanning that noble activity, for it to gain flames, it is those flames that will now consume those things which are not right, which are evil. Only in such an atmosphere will others grow up. Grow up in the sense many a personality will now be attracted to this neighborhood where they will continue with the struggle. Like you rightly pointed out, whoever wants peace must be prepared for war.
Thank you so much for that. We've come to the end of the show, listeners. I just want to read the beginning of the Grail message. It says, titled, For Your Guidance. A bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I am addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those people, those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Apushin. Dear listeners, I just want to thank you for joining us tonight on the topic of peace and justice. I would like to ask Gregory if you would like to say anything to end the show.
Wish them a beautiful week.
Thank you for that. So we'll be back again, listeners, next week, Tuesday as usual, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with a new topic, and look forward to you joining us. I wish you all a great week. God bless. Take care. All the best. Bye.